Yeah, before I really get started, I did want to take a moment. I'm sure you all know that one of the officers, detectives up in Phoenix, lost his life earlier this week, and I'd like to do just a quick moment of silence, so if you'd please join me. Thank you all. Certainly our thoughts and prayers are with his family and feel badly for his fellow workers as well. Those are things that none of us like to talk about, but hopefully with the support of all of the communities, they'll get through it. So, okay, down to work, so to speak. Really want to focus on positive things, but I wanted to put it in some kind of perspective before we started, and so I always like to talk about the city's financial situation. Because of our great staff, we've done I think the best job in Arizona at working our way through the tough economic times. And before I started putting together this talk a couple of weeks ago, I asked our finance director to give me some historic perspective on where our revenues are. And frankly, I was kind of surprised. He went back 5 years, and in 2008, which was kind of the end of the building boom, our total retail sales tax revenue into the city of Casa Grande was $9.6 million. Fast forward to 2013, which is the year we just finished, $9.5 million. So $100,000 less 5 years later. We have estimated 2014 dollars at about $9.4 million. So again, that retail sales tax, in spite of what you read about statewide sales tax, for us is going down instead of up. Our sales tax total is comprised of lots of different types of sales tax. And so if you look at the total sales tax, excluding construction sales, over that same 5-year period of time, we've been kind of stuck at $17.3 million over that 5-year period of time. And I was surprised looking at 2008, 2013, out of $17+ million in total sales tax revenue, the difference was less than $20,000. So we've been working very diligently at trying to make sure that we continue to offer city services with a very level revenue source, and becomes a problem because, like all of you that own businesses, our costs go up, be it utility costs, personnel costs, medical costs, and we've managed to do that with a revenue stream that has stayed fairly constant. One other little fact I thought was pretty interesting as I was looking at this, I said that 2008 was the end of the construction boom, and we also collect a construction sales tax in Casa Grande, like many cities do. And in 2008, that was a little over $11 million. Last year, it was slightly over $2 million. Now, the council, before the current council, back in Jim Norris's time, as a matter of fact, made what I thought was a really smart decision, that they look at construction sales tax and say that's one-time revenue, so we're only going to spend that on one-time expenses. And we've been able to do that through the past 5 or 6 years as well, but that's why that $9 million decrease in construction sales tax has allowed us to continue to operate our services like we always have. I want to talk briefly too about our sales tax rate our property tax rate. We have had declining assessed valuations. I know my property tax bill on my house has dropped dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. For as long as anybody can remember, the city of Casa Grande never had a tax rate that exceeded 99 cents. This past year, legally we can go up to about $1.08 or $1.09, but the council said no, we're not going to go above that 99-cent level. We're not going to do that again. I'm presupposing, but I'm pretty sure the council all agrees we're not going to do that with the next budget year either. But that also has cost us about $150,000 last year, and it'll be a similar amount this year. That property tax revenue will come back as assessed valuations go up, but there's about a 2-year lag between when the property values go up and you finally see it on your tax bill. I said last year, and I will reiterate it again this year, we continue to struggle with HERF revenue, which is Highway User Revenue Funds. Essentially, that's gas tax money. We are at the same levels we were a decade ago, even though we've doubled in population and probably tripled in road mileage. Interestingly enough, there is a move at the federal level to increase gas tax. And I think while everybody, myself included, doesn't like paying whatever it is we're paying for gas this week, but the gas tax at the federal level has stayed at 19 cents since 1992. And we need to do something because the infrastructure is falling apart. Clark County, Nevada increased the gas tax on a gallon of gas in Clark County 2 cents. For them, that generates $500 million a year. And so I think moving forward, certainly we in Arizona, as much as we don't want to pay more for gas, really need to look at that because our road system is falling apart. The only other troublesome issue, and then we'll start into the good news part of the discussion. We have recently got a notice from Arizona Department of Environmental Quality that we're exceeding there's about 50 different standards that they look at with our wastewater plant. One of them is something called selenium. I have no idea what selenium is or what it does, but our plant has exceeded the standard for that. And what's ironic about it is that the standard for drinking water is lower than it is for wastewater. And the selenium standard coming out of your tap is higher than what we're allowed to discharge. So we may have to go do some additional treatment at the treatment plant to remove selenium that's already in your drinking water. Don't know where that's going, but if you see an increase in your sewer bill, that very likely is what caused that. As I said, we're really not planning any service cuts at this point. We're working to try to manage within the revenues that we have. We do have a $20 million contingency, or not really, rainy day fund, I guess would be a better way to put it. And we maintain that because we want to maintain our bond rating. Right now we're at a AA, which for a community our size is phenomenal. It's been raised, I think, 4 times in the last 5 years. And it's much like your mortgage. If the bond rating goes down, the interest rate goes up and our cost goes up. So we feel very privileged to have been able to keep our bond rating up and keep that $20 million in the bank. And at least as of yesterday at 4 o'clock, our intention is to keep that money at that level. The one caveat I will give to that is that and I'm not really picking on the state legislature, but I am picking on the state legislature. They do have a tendency sometimes to adopt laws up there that affect us either on the revenue side or the expenditure side. One of the ones last year that they looked at was trying to alter where they collect construction sales tax at, and instead of collecting it at the location the facilities are built, they wanted to collect it at the location the material was bought, which means if you're a community that doesn't have a Home Depot or a Lowe's, you probably are going to take a huge hit on sales tax. We were able to ultimately overcome that. Didn't pass, but I'm sure it'll be back again at some point. So the caveat I give with all these taxes and everything else is we're assuming that nothing surprising will come out of the state legislature that will affect our ability to do our job. Okay, enough bad news or financial news. Some of the private sector things that are going on. We have seen an increase in home building this year. We did issue 154 permits for single-family homes, and 20 years ago, that was a really good year. We used to average 100, 125, 130 homes a year. 154 is on the right track. I think if we continue on the current pace, this year we'll probably see somewhere in the 190 to 210 range. Again, very dependent on interest rates and everything else. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about housing because I certainly think we have a little different philosophy about housing than some of the other communities that we deal with. On the retail front, I'm sure everybody in here is, it's one of my 2 most frequently asked questions. When is Sam's Club going to open? If you've been by there, it looks like they're pretty much done. We understand they hope to open in the middle of next month, and I think the big advantage to that is that we think we'll see some of the leakage that currently goes up to Costco and Sam's Club in the Valley, shopping here locally. And I think Lisa made the comment in the video, and she's exactly right. We need those local tax dollars to stay here, so hopefully Sam's Club will be a good addition for that. One of the other notable retail changes in town was the renovation of the old Albertson store into the Cal Ranch facility. And used to be one of the busiest corners in town. Certainly excited to see them as a new business here in town. And it's always nice to see a vacant storefront get reused into something new. We've had a banner year on the industrial front. We sat here last year in the midst of lots of construction on both sides of us. Commonwealth, Erman Dairies to the west of us, opened in September. They are in production as we speak, and they are adding workforce on a regular basis. Great find for us, and we competed. The economic development business is very competitive. I always tell people if we can get them to the table to talk to us one-on-one, we have a tremendous track record in landing them. And Commonwealth was kind of that way. They came in looking for the right community fit. We did install a sewer line to provide sewer service to them. And everything I've seen and heard about them, they're happy with the community, they're happy with the location, they're happy with the workforce, and they will eventually grow to about 250 people. I think right now they're at a little below 100. To the east of us is Franklin Foods, and they also opened in September. They make cream cheese. They employ about 40 people, and again, they're in production. Looks like they are going to be very successful as well. And one of the spin-off benefits, they use local milk products for their raw material. So it's also helped long-term some of the dairy farms in Pinal County. One of the projects that a lot of people I don't know really realize is going on, but Hexcel across the street has gone through a massive expansion as well. I was looking at our annual financial report, and Hexcel employs a little over 400 people here in town, and they are in the midst of an expansion. They were recently at our planning and zoning to add some employees, and I think their added total is around 100 new jobs here in the community. And I will tell you that so important, I think, for us to create those jobs, because ultimately that will drive a housing and a retail market. So our focus at the council level has been, what do we need to do to bring good paying jobs to our community long term? The most frequently asked question I get is, what about Phoenix Mart? And yeah, you guys didn't believe that was the most frequently asked question, I bet, did you? You know, I tell a lot of people I talk to this. Phoenix Mart is a huge, huge project. It's probably one of the biggest we've ever seen in Casa Grande. Current estimate is about $150 million for the Phoenix Mart building itself. It is being financed through a program called EB5 that's very complicated, very complex. There are an array of infrastructure problems or issues, not really problems, you can solve them. But all of those complications means that it's tough to get all the pieces together and get it going in a timely fashion. And I think a lot of people get frustrated about that, but it is moving forward. They are before our Board of Adjustment next week to get approval to start doing some work in the front end of the project. They hope to transition from that sometime in the second quarter of 2014 to start putting in on-site roads and utilities. And then they hope to start the building shortly after that. They're still looking at a completion date of November of 15. And I think that one of the cautions we've tried to give a lot of people that we've talked to, they're a huge employer. It's a huge feather in the cap of Casa Grande. Depending upon which economic study you look at, right now they're talking about employing about 8,000 people. That's the third most frequently asked question I get, is where are all these workers going to come from? But I think realistically we'll have people from the East Valley and from North Tucson that'll drive in to take some of those jobs, as well as all of the local people here. They are working diligently. We are working through infrastructure issues with them. I think we're very close to coming up with a sewer agreement with them. And my caution is, be patient. They will be here. Even when they open in November of 15, it doesn't instantly mean that everybody's financial issues will be resolved. Certainly the cities won't. They are not a sales tax generator, so we don't anticipate a lot of sales tax out of them. On the property tax side, we won't see any benefit from that property tax for probably 3 years after they finish. So I do think the advantage is the payroll that they'll generate, because if we, again, don't want to harp about it, but if we can put more people to work, that means they have more money to spend, and that'll drive secondary issues like restaurants and retail and things like that. Phoenix Mart is misunderstood in a lot of quarters, and the Phoenix Mart building is one piece of a very large project. 2 other components were approved as part of the initial phase 1 project. One is a hotel, and one it was initially an apartment complex on the west side of the building. Both of those projects are also moving forward, and I think the expectation is to have the hotel finished about the same time that the Phoenix Mart building itself is finished, so that it will be a place where international buyers can stay on site and be able to go in and look at the products that are available in Phoenix Mart. So certainly willing to talk to people more about that afterwards. If you're curious about it, come up and talk to me, but I don't want to belabor the issue. They are coming. They are going to get here. Just be patient. Don't expect them to change everything overnight. We also have had several public sector projects this year. We're about 30 days away from finishing an expansion to the downtown library and to our dispatch center. Those are both projects that were made possible through a bond issue that was approved by the citizens about 6 or 7 years ago. And we were able to save money on some of our other projects to be able to do these two. If you've been in the main library, it is busy all the time. I've had the opportunity to go look at the expansion. It's going to look really nice when we're done. We are changing the entrance too, so if you're used to going in on the east side of the building, it will be in a new location. So be surprised. The dispatch center is in the old police station. Dispatch, I think, is one of the, again, one of the unsung heroes in the police department, and their work environment was cramped in a corner of the old station. The new facility is very, very nice. More spread out, gives them areas that they can work, and if you ever have a need to call a dispatcher, you'll be really glad that they're in a nice work environment and they're happy. They do a great job. I wanted to talk briefly about the video, and again, I really appreciate the council stepping up and helping with that, and certainly appreciate Augustine's time and energy with it. But there were a couple of things that I wanted to highlight, and I think one of them is this whole issue of economic development. It is a very, very competitive business, and as I said, we find we're fairly successful when we get prospects to the table in landing the deal, but we compete regularly not only with cities within Arizona, but across the country. We're currently being considered for a large manufacturing plant, and our competition, one is in Utah, one is here in Arizona, and one is in Texas. So be aware that it's a game that we all have to play. It's very, very tough. We try to be a little bit careful because while we need jobs in the community, we want to make sure that they are good paying jobs, because at the end of the day, we want people that can afford to buy a house here in the community and buy local. So I do think that the council as a whole is really focused on that, and we will continue to be over the next few years. We talked a little bit in the video too about some of the recognition we've gotten both at the city level and at some of the individual levels. And I think that kind of typifies, I said early on that I've lived in a lot of places and I really like living in Casa Grande. I think it's the best community I've ever lived in. And I think one of the reasons for that is the people that live here. And it's kind of the sense of community that we all have. And I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to talk about some of the outreach efforts that, again, were mentioned in the video, but I think they really warrant a little bit more highlighting. Certainly, our PIO has done a great job in revising our website, televising our council meetings, not only on Cox Channel 11, but also on the web now. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if I were at home on a Monday night, I'd be watching Monday Night Football. But, you know, you can watch now on the internet if you want to. And the website, I think, is easy to navigate, and it's been a real asset. And I think just some of the other things that we've done with the Leadership Academy, we have an HOA Academy, the monthly city scene that Augustine produces with the help of Mary Allen. And we just recently finished a video that's called Visit Casa Grande, I think. It's on our website. It just popped up here about 2 months ago. We've already had almost 1,200 hits on it. And it really talks about us as a community. We just uploaded it this week onto the GPEC website. So if you get on the Greater Phoenix Economic Council's website and click on Casa Grande, you'll see a really nice synopsis of what we're all about. I also think that the council focus on communities has been almost as strong as a focus on economic development. And you know, it kind of started when we went through our general plan about 5 years ago, and we were trying to come up with a catchy slogan for the general plan. And I think it was actually Mr. Powell that came up with it. And it's called Community First. And I think that as I look around the volunteer efforts that we do in the community, and again, the video talked about the smoke detector installation program through the fire department. 300 volunteers go out and install smoke detectors in people's houses at no cost on a Saturday morning. Recently, we've started another group called Neighbors United. They were over on the west side this past spring, I guess, painting graffiti off of walls, cleaning up yards on the west side. And again, all community-based, all volunteers, and I would estimate they had between 300 and 400 volunteers for that event as well. We talked a little bit about the Garden of Sunshine, and that's a youth commission project, and it's not done yet, so I'm sure that if people here would like to help fund or build some of the additions we're looking at for the Garden of Sunshine, the youth commission would be more than happy to get you involved with that. And I think a couple of things that I really like about that. One is that it's really been spearheaded by the Youth Commission, and they are the future leaders of our community. If you've not had an opportunity to go to the Garden of Sunshine, it's adjacent to the city's pool on McMurray and Brown Avenue. And it really is to commemorate those young adults and kids who have lost their lives in Casa Grande. It's pretty sobering to go through and look at all the names on the wall. Our city employees did a back-to-school drive this past fall, and I meant to get the number, but I think it was about 8,000 items. Frank, is that about right?
About 16,000.
Oh, sorry. 16,000 items were donated to the elementary school district, and it was really through the community effort of collecting all that stuff. I think Frank drives a Prius or something, so we were joking with him, we were going to make him haul all that stuff over to the school in the back of his car. And then one of the other community-based projects we did that doesn't get a lot of notoriety, we've always had trouble at our animal shelter with people dropping animals off at night and on the weekend with no place really to put them. I mean, we had an outdoor facility that they could drop them in, but if it's hot or cold and the animal has to be there overnight, it wasn't the best environment. So we had a local group, volunteered, came out and built a drop-off center at the animal shelter, so we now have a protected environment for pets that are no longer wanted. And again, reinforces that feeling of community, and I think that's what probably separates Casa Grande from a lot of the other communities that I've lived in, is that people here really do care about what the community does, and when people need something, they're the first ones to step up and help. We also have a really active boards and commissions program here in town, and if you're not on a board or commission, would like to be in one, we are always looking for help. I know we just recently had a whole bunch that we were trying to recruit new members for. They are on our website, but I think a couple that are different that I think are really, again, kind of typify us as a community that really cares about what we do. There's one called the Plein Air Art Contest through our Arts and Humanities Commission. And artists come from around the state, check in the morning, and then paint a picture in Casa Grande and turn it in at the end of the day. They're currently on display. There's some in City Hall. I think there's some at the, is it the library? Remy, is that right? Okay. And then They have one coming up on the 22nd of March. It's called the Mini Play Competition. They're little mini plays that local people have screen wrote and acted. So again, keep your eye on the paper on the city's website if you've got nothing going on the 22nd. It's kind of a fun way to spend the evening. I know I was lucky enough to go be a judge at the Senior Follies last week and got to listen to 10 really entertaining singing and skits at Penn Center. Filled it up, 650 people out there, so we need a bigger venue next year. And then one of the other ones that's always been one of my favorite ones, I'll talk a little bit about it later, is the Day of Play, where we encourage kids and families to go out and partake of physical activities like I used to do when I was a kid. You know, Foursquare, Red Rover, things like that, just to get them out and get exercise. Come on now, I know some of you did that too. The Day of Play actually, it was kind of a kickoff for a program, and I know Mary talked a little bit about this in the video, and that's the Let's Move program. It's a program that was really initiated by the First Lady trying to do something about childhood obesity. And as the video talked about, we were award winners in the 5 categories, and if memory serves me correctly, I think we had 3 golds, a silver, and a bronze medal in the 5 categories that were offered. And I think what's really important about that is we all know that obesity causes all kinds of health problems, and we need to get everybody, not just young adults, ourselves included, out getting some exercise, eating healthier. And I think our Parks and Rec Department has done a great job of taking that and running with it. We have had national recognition with that program. I was invited back to Washington last summer, I guess. And one of the projects that we have is a partnership with the local elementary school, and it's called the Sensational Salad Bar. It was started as an alternative for kids getting the normal food that, you know, I mean, I don't know what your kids are like, but when my kid was that age, he liked pizza and hamburgers. But this is a salad bar. It's available at every one of the elementary schools, and it is very, very popular. And while we were at the ceremony in Washington, they highlighted that as one of the innovative ideas that you can do in your community. I also mentioned that they also have another program that fits in, while it wasn't part of Let's Move, it's a program that brings fruit and vegetable snacks to 2 of the schools, Palo Verde and Saguaro. And so kids in the morning have healthy snacks. And it's not the kind of fruit that I see at the grocery store, you know, apples and peaches. I mean, it's stuff, some of the stuff I've never heard of. Dragon fruit is one of them, edible flowers. If you go in classrooms at that school, you actually see the kids eating vegetables and fruit snacks in the morning instead of, you know, a candy bar. So great programs, a lot of appreciation to the Community Services Department for getting behind the program. And again, it's really put Casa Grande in a great light on a national platform. We're also very regionally oriented here. We talk a lot about GPEC, it's Greater Phoenix Economic Council. We have been a member for about 2 years. Matter of fact, Franklin Foods was one of the prospects that came through the GPEC system. Their focus right now, I mean, they're always looking for new sites for new businesses, but they're really focused on trade with Mexico and the Far East, and they've recently opened up a office in Shanghai. So again, as a GPEC member, we get the advantage of all of that international exposure as well. And while I don't watch Chinese TV, we get visitors in Casa Grande a lot, and when I come out to meet them, they all go, "Oh yeah, I've seen you on television in China." So the word is getting out, and that's a good thing. I mean, not that they see me because I could care less, but it's a good thing that Casa Grande's name is out in that international platform, because going forward, that's where we need to look. The world is getting smaller, and we're in a perfect position to connect Mexico trade with the Far East, and I think we can do that. We do have a couple of challenges ahead of us. We need to widen I-10. We are working regionally to try to make that happen. I'm sure we all go to Phoenix at least once in a while, and the truck traffic is pretty bad. If you ever go the other way to Tucson, it's amazing how much difference that third lane makes. And We will continue to work on trying to get I-10 widened through to the north. There is a new freeway being talked about. It's called I-11, which will eventually connect just north of Casa Grande with Las Vegas is kind of the first two phases. But beyond that, it goes all the way up to Boise, Idaho, and up into Canada, and it will become the Canamex corridor. And it's important, I think, that we not lose focus of what the interstate system was originally built for. It was built for freight and for defense purposes. And if we could build I-11 and move some of that truck traffic off of I-10, it would make the drive to the Long Beach ports and to Canada much more efficient than going down through I-10 through the urban area of Phoenix. One of the challenges we have with I-10 and I-11, there's this thing called the North-South Freeway that runs through Florence, Coolidge, Eloy, connects the bend in the freeway at Picacho with Florence Junction, more or less. And certainly there's a lot of interest in that route because it takes automobile traffic off of I-10, opens up a lot of desert land for development. But I still think that I-10 is the most important road corridor in Arizona, and we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to widen that. And I hope that that north-south freeway doesn't take away the importance of the I-10 story. We're also involved with a group called JPAC. We love acronyms in government. JPAC is a Joint Planning Advisory Committee, and it's made up of MAG, and CAG, which is the PEMA area governments, MAG Association of Governments, and the Central Arizona Association of Governments. And our new MPO has become the newest member of that group, and they are transportation focused as well. And right now, most of their focus is at the border crossings. We need to figure out how to make crossing at the border more efficient because it'll open up trade throughout Arizona. And again, if we look at where Casa Grande is located and we think we can be the link between north-south and east-west linkages, that border crossing becomes more and more critical. We did talk on the video a little bit about the new MPO. Won't belabor that point other than to say that we're up and running. We do have an executive director. She started 3 weeks ago. It means about $750,000 minimum in highway revenue that we will see in this region from this day forward. So it's a big deal and opens up the door for additional federal funding in some of our roadways. We also have just finished, or on the verge of finishing, something called the East-West Corridor Study. It's a joint study with Pinal County and the city of Maricopa. And it's really to start looking at expressway-type roadways that will connect from Casa Grande ultimately over into the Buckeye area. We've had a couple of hiccups along the way, but I think we'll see that study finish up fairly soon. And it's important to identify it now because as development occurs, we don't want to have to be putting houses in the middle of a future roadway. We also are working on a project for an interchange at Courtston Road and I-10. And we hope to finish that first part of next year. And if you drive down I-10 now, one of the other frequently asked questions I get is, why don't we put an interchange on Cottonwood Lane? And the interstate standard is every 2 miles. So if you look at the way I-10 is structured, we have one at Florence Boulevard, we'll have one at Courtson Road, we'll have one at McCartney Road, we'll have one at Florence or Val Vista. Those are 2 mile increments. So Courtson Road is the next interchange that we should see. We're trying to get ourselves to a point where we can identify what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost. So again, when development occurs on that corner and it's fairly imminent, we don't build buildings in the way of what will be the future interchange. So we're trying to get out ahead of some of the activities that are going on. We also have a new interchange being proposed at Hennis Road and I-8, and that's kind of in the same boat. We just recently at the council meeting approved some changes in a subdivision boundary to make sure that we don't build houses and buildings in the way of that proposed interchange. I think this past fall, our city manager and I sat down with what we think are kind of 5 key projects in Casa Grande, and I think moving forward, it's important that we coordinate those together. And again, in no particular order, one of them certainly is a Phoenix Mart project. But we also have a project that George Chassis owns. It's on the intersection of I-8 and I-10. We're really hoping that we can turn that into a corporate office center. And again, those are future projects in Casa Grande that we think will change the complexion of who we are and where we're going. We also have the Southwest Commerce Park, which is the only rail-served, shovel-ready industrial park in Arizona. It's located just west of the Walmart distribution center. We also had the Walton Group in, and Walton Group right now owns a lot of property throughout Pinal County, but they own most of the quadrants of what will become the Courtson Road I-10 interchange, and they're looking at several different projects, development projects to put on that. And then the fifth one was our Performance Institute out at the Grande. And I know last year we talked about some of the things going on out there with the Faldo Golf School and the soccer program. We have more things that we're working on out there that I think will kind of, again, help change the complexion of the direction we hope we're going so that we don't get overwhelmed by Phoenix and Tucson when they get here. And what was interesting about the meeting with these 5 landowners, they all have a common interest, and as we talked around the table, we found that many of them had common contacts as well. So I think that our job moving forward is to help these people connect together in a way that they bring quality products and quality jobs into Casa Grande, and they kind of feed on each other to some degree. So we're really confident that the meeting was worthwhile. I think if you talk to the 5 gentlemen that were there, they would agree that there's a certain amount of synergy by bringing these people in that have property ownership interests in Casa Grande and really want to see us excel over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So I think maybe we planted that seed when we did that. We are going to continue to be aggressive in economic development. We are, like I said, active members not only of GPEC and Access Arizona, but we have staff that are active in the Arizona Economic Development Association as well. And anything we can do to put our community in a better position to compete nationally with other communities is worthwhile. One of the things that I think always happens when we bring people into the community, they want to go look at downtown. We finished the infrastructure downtown. If you've not been down there this winter, a lot of activity. I actually had trouble finding a parking spot the other day, so, but that's a good thing. And lots of small businesses down there, and that's kind of the fabric of the community, so it's really important that we don't forget how we got to where we are. And so I think we'll continue to support downtown. We just finished and approved the master plan for Life on Main, which is the stuff south of the tracks. We are really anxious to start implementing some of the findings in that. So hopefully over the next couple of years, we'll start seeing some activity that will tie all those downtown elements together. You know, it's really through the use of volunteers and a quality city staff that we've been able to do what we do and the time frames that we do it. And I can't emphasize enough how proud we are as a council of the staff and the citizens of the community. And I will tell you that my secretary Karen does an employee newsletter, and she handed me a copy of it the other day, and I said, I really like that last paragraph, so I'm going to read this paragraph to you, but I will credit it to Karen because it was her idea. One of the most frequently asked questions I get from our residents and our surrounding neighbors is, how do you manage to keep things moving when others are standing still? My response is always, a positive community attitude, positive employee involvement can only bring positive results. And I think the fact that there's close to 200 people in here today is really indicative of how all of us want to work together to make Casa Grande a better place. So with that, I'm going to close. I thank you all for coming today, and I hope to see you back next year. Thank you.